All right, we are holding on Daf Chavav Amud Bet in Masechet Sanhedrin the Talmud Bavli. We ended off last week dealing with Shevna and Chizkiah. So Chizkiah HaMelech and Shevna. Chizkiah gave a shir with 110,000 students. Shevna gave a shir of 130,000 students. Sanhedrin was coming, and Sanhedrin wanted to destroy Yerushalayim. Chizkiah and his students didn't want to give up. They said, we're going to keep it. Hashem is going to help us. And Shevna, he wanted to give in. He wanted to accept Sancheriv's peace treaty. He also wanted that Chizkiah should be killed, and he would take over as a vassal king in Yerushalayim. And we said, and in the end, that Shevna was killed. He came out of the city with his students, and as he was walking out of the gates, Shevna is on one side of the gate. The students are still inside Yerushalayim. The gate closes miraculously. Gavril comes and closes the gate on them. They can't come out. He's outside. They take him to the Sancherib, the Assyrian generals, and they say to him, "Where's all your people that you said are going to agree with Sancherib?" And he said, they decided not to come. They said, what? They put holes into his heels, and they tied their horses to it, and they ran him around, and tied to the horse, and he ended up dying that way. And he was punished. And the Gemara said the reason why this happened to him was because he was a Baal Hana. He was somebody who was too much involved in pleasure seeking, that even though he was a Rosh Yeshiva and he was a Kohen Gadol, the Torah never really entered him because he was a big Baal Hana, but someone who was always seeking pleasures. And Rashi said, we mentioned this last week as well, the Baal Hana means his Mishkav Zocher, that he was sleeping with other men. Instead of with women, he was sleeping with men. And we explained at that time that it looks like the Mefarshim understand that people who do such things are usually people who are pleasure seekers, meaning that they're going from one pleasure to another pleasure. So this they already did. They want to try something new. And this is what Shevna seems to have done. Okay, so now we're going to come to another pasuk that dealt with this case of Shevna and Chizkiah, as we're holding on 26b1 on the left side, the bottom paragraph. It says in Tehillim 11 in the pasuk Gimel, Ki hashatot yiharesun tzadik ma pa'al. When the shatot are destroyed, what has the righteous one done? When the shatot are destroyed, what did the tzaddik do? That's what it says. Now, what does this mean? Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Eina have an argument. Chad amar ilu Chizkiah v'saraton yarasim. The pasuk means that if Chizkiah and his people were destroyed, Tzaddik ma pa'al, people would say, where was Hashem? So if Chas Shalom, Shevna got his way, and Chizkiah and his students would have died, it would have been destroyed, people would have said, where is Hashem? What did Hashem? Why didn't he protect them? And the other one said, if the Beit Midrash was destroyed, people would say, Tzaddik ma pa'al, how could Hashem let this happen? We had Chizkiah, the Tzaddik, and how could Hashem let this happen? Ula Amar says no. What it means, Hashatot, Machshevotav shel oto rasha. Einan neherasot. If the evil thoughts of Shevna were not destroyed, Tzaddik ma pa'al. Rashi understands this would be, then what was the point of Chizkiah being a tzaddik if Shevna's thoughts would have gone through? The way Marshall learns this is the same question on Hashem. If Shevna's bad thoughts would have gone through, were not destroyed, then people would ask Hashem, how could this be? How could you as a tzaddik do this? So this pasuk in Tehillim can be translated three ways. Now, the Gemara wants to know, this word shatot, we said, can either mean tzaddikim, can either mean the Beit HaMikdash, or it can mean thought of a person. Everything is good according to the one that says that this is Ula's pshat, that it is the thoughts of the Rasha. Ki hashatot yiharisun. Because that's why it says Ki hashatot yirasun. Now, how do we know? And the Gemara just says it's pashut. But how do we know that shatot is thought? So if you look in Rashi, where it says shel ilu machshavet shel shevna harasha ein naharasot, and if you look towards the end of that Rashi, right before Evan Hayit Hasham, it says by Paro v'lo shat libo gam lezot. When it says that Paro didn't pay attention to this miracle either. So as the miracles were happening, and any sane person would have realized that Hashem was punishing them, it says there, v'lo shat libo. He didn't pay attention. So shat means, from shatot, means machshavot, means thoughts. Now, the one who says it means Beit HaMikdash, also everything's okay. Why? It's not. It says, Evan Hayit Hasham. There was an Evan, a stone, that was in the Beit HaMikdash from the days of the Nevi'im. Ushtiyah Haytanikat. And it was called the Shtiyah stone, which means the foundation stone. According to the Mefarshim, this was the point from where the whole earth was created. Okay, this is where the Olam was Nivra, the world was created from the Evan Shtiyah, and it came out. And in the Beit HaMikdash, the Evan Shtiyah was where the Aron HaKodesh was put. This is where the Sluchas were, where the Man was, the staff of Moshe and Aaron were there, or the staff of Aaron was there. It was the place of a very holy in the Kodesh Kedashim. Where is the Evan Shtiyah today? Anyone know? Where is the foundation stone today? According to most opinions, the Evan Shtiyah is in the Dome of the Rock. You know, you have the mosque on top of the Temple Mount. It's called the Dome of the Rock. In there, they say, is the Evan Shtiyah. You have pictures of it. Here, I can show you a quick picture. You can probably Google it for a clearer picture. But here in the Steinsaltz, he puts it, this is inside the mosque. They have a big rock there, and that's part of the shrine there. And this is what they're saying is the Evan Shtiyah. This is the actual Evan Shtiyah that's still in existence today. Okay. The Gemara continues. And now the Gemara says, but according to the ones who say it's Chizkiah and his friends and the other his students, his Talmidim, where do we have it that tzaddikim are called shatot? Where do you have it the word shatot can mean tzaddikim? The Gemara says we have. It says Kila Adonai Mitzukei Eretz Me'ashet Alehem Tevel. It says, for the tzaddikim are the pillars of the earth, and upon them he founded the world. Vayeshet. The tzaddikim means Vayeshet. V'bayit ema mehacha. Or you can say from here. It says in Yeshaya, Hifli etzah higdil tushia. He has shown wonderful counsel. He's shown vast wisdom. So tushia means wisdom, which means tzaddikim. Big Talmidei Chachamim, they are tzaddikim, and this is called tushia. So shatot from tushia, shem sharish, and that's how you get. That's note 13. Mishutat tushia, and that's how you get shatot can mean tzaddikim. Okay, now so he said the wisdom is tushia. What's the wisdom? Wisdom is Torah. Amir b'Hanan. Lama nikra shema tushia. Why is Torah, the wisdom of Torah, called tushia? So the Gemara answers, Mipnei shehi mateshet koho shel adam. Because it's mateshet, tushia, mateshet, it weakens the strength of man. When a person has so many mitzvot, it makes him weak. Now, before we go on, the Marsha says, if you look in note 14, that it's a segula. It's actually a good thing for the Jewish people because we are really strong-willed. But when you learn Torah, you become humble. I want to read to you before we move on from the Torah Chaim. The Torah Chaim says a very interesting things. He says, "She'ein hakavana sha'alidei haTorah be'emel haTorah nichlash kocha shel adam." It's not because of the person working in Torah to understand Torah, and he's working at it that makes him weak. Because sharei chotvei eitzim, chotvei avanim, the cutters of wood, the cutters of stone, b'shar balei malachot, the people who carry them, balei malachot, hatorach b'malacha shelahem, merubah me'amala shel Torah. There are many jobs that are much more tedious and much more strength requiring. It makes you much more tired than learning Torah in an air-conditioned room. And they're not called Toshia. This is the derech of Torah. Anyone who learns Torah, he loses his strength. But why? Listen what he says here. Because in order for his intellect and his spirituality to become stronger, you have to weaken the physical. Because as long as your physical is stronger, you're not going to be able to understand Torah the correct way. You have to be less physical, and then you're going to have Torah better understanding. So what do we see? That you have to be less physical in order to be more spiritual. And that's what the Torah does. The Torah does is a segula. It doesn't happen because you're working hard at Torah. It happens because you want to learn Torah. And we have a very prime example, right? Gemara tells us about Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish was a bandit. One day he's swimming in the pool, or swimming in the lake, whatever it was. He says, Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Yochanan says, I have a sister even more beautiful. If you do tshuva, you become what's it called, a good man. You'll marry my sister. He says, okay, I'm gonna go learn Torah. And when he went into the pool, he was able, with one big leap, he was able to travel way far. And now all of a sudden he couldn't. What happened? That's Torah. Once you accept Torah for real, it makes you weak physically, so that spiritually you can become stronger. I want to say further than this. I want to say, in the world, you look around and you ask anybody, ask yourself, which species in the world has killed more of its own kind than any other? And everyone's going to tell you, the humankind. We have created, as humans, bombs and all sorts of mass destruction weapons and torture devices and whatnot in order for us to be able to kill other people, thousands of people at Hashem. Because the truth is, the Torah tells us, rak kol hayom, the people are always thinking bad. The only way that we can change our thought, our mindset, and everything about us is by learning Torah. The Zohar HaChodesh, the Zohar tells us, the truth is, when a person starts to learn Torah, he becomes weak at first, because you have to weaken the physical. But as time goes on, he enjoys Torah, then it's called Gevurah, it's called strength, because now his spirituality is strengthened. This is a very big yesod. People don't understand that it's good to be weak physically, because that lets you tap in more to your spirituality. That's done via learning Torah. Doesn't mean weak, meaning that you shouldn't take care of yourself. You have to take care of your body and everything. It means like that's part of it. You understand the Gemara of Shevna. Shevna was a Baal Hana. He was still about his physical. He still wanted physical pleasures. Mishkav Zoch, whatever physical pleasure he can think of, he wanted to do. That's why the Torah never came into him, because he wasn't weakened. He wasn't trying to get weakened. He wasn't really learning Torah to understand it and let it come into him. And as such, it never came into him, and he was able to be over what he did. Okay? So far, so good? Let's move on. The Gemara is going to bring us now another reason, Davar Achar. Another reason it's called Toshia. Torah is called Toshia. Shenitena b'hash'ai mipnei Satan. It's called Toshia because it was given in secrecy on the account of the Satan. When Hashem gave the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu, he made the Satan busy with stuff. Because Hashem knew that if Satan would be there, Satan would say in 40 days they're going to sin. Don't give them the Torah. It's too special to go to human people, to the human folk. So Hashem made him busy, and kind of in secrecy gave the Torah so the Satan wouldn't stop it. Davar achar, Toshiyat Devarim Shel Tohu Sha'olam, Vishutat Aleihim. It's the Torah is just words, and words are just words. They're nothing, not real, but yet the whole world stands on it. If it wasn't for Torah, the world will become tohu vavohu, become nothing. And because of the nothing word, the Torah stands up. The Mahasha explains that what it means is that there are some mitzvot that make absolutely no sense. Yeah, shatnez. You cannot put wool and linen together. I just bought a new suit for Rosh Hashanah. I have to go take it to the shatnez lab. Avram Chaim's father does shatnez testing also. And what's it called? You have to check. It makes no sense. Wool, linen, what's the big issue? Just let me have it. Right? Kalayim, and mix certain fruits together. Makes no sense. So the Maharsha says there's many laws in the Torah that tohu, they're empty. They really don't understand them. And yet, if it wasn't for them, the whole world will become tohu vavohu. It'll all become back to nothing. Therefore, these mere words making a big difference. Amar Ula, 26b2. Amar Ula, machshava mo'elet afilu l'divrei Torah. A person's machshava disturbs his learning. A person who has thoughts, too many thoughts. The Rashi and Taisus explain this is that a person is thinking too much about parnasah. Thinking how to make money, how to make money, how to make money. And then he tries to learn Torah, it's not going to work. You're too much thinking. Rashi and Taisus also say another pshat is even if he comes up with a plan, his thoughts about how he's going to become a Talmid Chacham, that he's going to learn this on this day and that day and this and that day and this and that and finish this by then. All those plans are not going to come to fruition. Wait a minute, even others explain is that person thinks he's making his own plans, even if he's going to do it for Torah things. And at the end of the day, he's going to say, I did it myself because I made the plan. Shem says it's not going to come through your plans. This is a very big yesod. People plan, and they end up not getting what they planned. I think a lot of times people say it happens by them by shidduchim. Okay, certain girls, certain boys, they have certain things they say, I'm not going to marry a person with this X, Y, and Z. And then all of a sudden they marry the person exactly with those things. Because Hashem says, you can't plan. You don't know what you're talking about. And here it's saying that if a person plans, it takes away from the ability to learn Torah. Shnei Amar, Mefer machshavot arumim, v'lo ta'asen yedayim tushiyah. He abolishes the thoughts of the clever, and their hands will not accomplish. Person who's thinking too much, he doesn't accomplish. You need to have some trust in Hashem. In fact, the Maharsha explains this to me, that if a person just thinks Torah, but he doesn't speak Torah from his mouth, he doesn't move his lips and say the words, this is never gonna know Torah that way. In fact, the Gemara in Masechet Eruvin, Daf Nun Gimel Amud Bet, says over there, Bruria one time, the life of my mayor, saw a boy learning, and he wasn't moving his lips. She told him, how could you not move your lips? When you move your lips, your whole body is involved, and your Torah goes into your whole body, otherwise it doesn't go. Or right after the Gemara, Rabbi Eliezer had a student, it says, that was learning Torah for 2-3 years straight, without stopping. He's just learning. And after 2-3 years, he forgot everything. Why? Because the whole time he was learning, he was only using his mind, and he wasn't using his words. You have to actually move your lips when you are learning. I learn on Shabbat, and a few guys who I learn with, I've always seen them, whenever I'm reading the Gemara, they're reading it with me, under their breath. They're moving their lips. I didn't understand it until this week. They understand that you have to move your lips, according to the Maharsha. Now, Amar Rabba says, however, im atzukin lishma ina mu'eleh. But if they were learning Torah lishma for the right reasons, because they want to come closer to Hashem, to understand Hashem's Torah, be able to do the mitzvot correctly, if we did it lishma, then these machshavot, these thoughts, would not interfere. Therefore, a person's parnasah If he's thinking about it lishma, he wants to be able to learn lishma. Therefore, he's thinking how he can make enough money so he can learn Bakoina without any problems. Then it won't bother his Torah learning. Or if a person plans to learn X, Y, and Z at this time and at that time, and he does it lishma, not to come smart and show people, but rather because he wants to come close to Hashem, then it won't bother. And if a person learns b'machshava, according to the Maharsha, if he's doing it lishma, even though he should move his lips, but he did it lishma, he won't forget it. Shenemar rabot machshava b'levish, because it says there are many thoughts in the mind in the person's mind. But Hashem itakum, but Hashem's thought will become. The Gemara understands it. Hashem. However, the Atzat Hashem means if you have a etza, a thought, advice that includes Hashem in it, he takum, then it will stay. Hashem will stand forever. Okay, so it's very important, especially coming up Rosh Hashanah, that when a person is going to daven for whatever he needs, to always somehow say, they have to mean it also, not just say, but to mean it also that I'm asking for this, this, and that, and I'm saying this and that in order to serve you, Hashem, better. Because if you do that, Hashem hitakum. If it's related to Hashem, then it will stay forever. Amar Yehuda. Any questions on that? Okay. Amar Yehuda. Imatai. When we said earlier, someone who gambles, the gambler, he's playing with dice, and he is pasul to be an aid, to be a witness. We said this only happens, according to Yehuda, it only happens if that's his professional gamble. That's what he does all the time. But if he has another business and he's a social gambler, then he would be allowed to be an aid. The halacha is like Yehuda, that this is the halacha, and we already mentioned that is the halacha. Only someone who is a professional gambler is possible to be an aid, but someone who has another job and socially gambles, he's acceptable to be a witness. Now, starts the next Gemara. When someone becomes a possible aid, someone becomes a not kosher witness, an announcement has to go out in the Beddin. That's what the Gemara says. When the Rambam brings this down halacha, the Rambam says to make an announcement in the shuls and in the Beit Midrash, in the study halls and in the synagogues. Obviously, that's where people are, and that's where they'll hear it. So that's the halacha. That's the Gemara says halacha. Now the Gemara says, what about if it's known this guy is a bad person? Do you still have to make an announcement if it's well known? Ro'eh, when you have a shepherd, we learned last week, shepherds in Eretz Yisrael, you weren't allowed to be a shepherd of small animals because they would go into places in people's fields, and the owners would let the animals to go into other people's fields and eat there, and this way they were stealing. So you're not allowed to be a shepherd in Eretz Yisrael for small flock. So Ro'eh, so everyone knows he's a stealer. One says, still, you need to proclaim that he is disqualified. But the other one says, no, you don't need to make an announcement. Everyone knows. Where it says, according to the one, he says you don't need to make achraz, you don't have to make an announcement. All's okay. Why? Because this is what we said in the Reuven Rav that said stam ro'eh pasul. We brought down halacha last week that stam ro'eh, a regular shepherd, is pasul. So if you're saying you need to make an announcement, what does it mean that a regular shepherd is pasul? You're telling me a regular shepherd is pasul means even without an announcement. Gemara says no. What it means is the stama machrizin aleh. That once you heard that he is a shepherd, then you don't have to investigate. You just automatically make a proclamation, but you still have to make an announcement. Maybe that's what it means. The Gemara brings down, there was a gift document on which two robbers signed as witnesses. So you have two Eidim there, apostle. Savara Papa Bashmuel, but Papa Bashmuel thought to make the document kosher. The halo achrizan alahu, because he said they never came out an announcement that these two people are pasul. Therefore, it should be a kosher star, kosher document. Amalei Rava, he says, Nehib de beyan hachazara, de gezlan de rabanan, de oraita, mi b'inan hachazah. He says, no. The only time you need a proclamation is if they're being over an avera of the rabbanon. When it's a rabbinic mitzvah that they're not doing, or they're stealing rabbinically. But if they did a stealing of the oraita, which Rashi explains means someone is holding something in his hand and they come and they steal it from that guy's hand, which is a oraita stealing, then you don't need to make an announcement. A, it gets out quickly, everyone knows about it. B, it's a doraita. You don't need to make an announcement for a doraita stealing, and therefore he becomes pasul. Lahalacha. What is the halacha regarding announcement? With regard to one who is disqualified from bearing witness by Torah law, if he testifies, his testimony is nullified, even if his discretion is not alone, his disqualification was not proclaimed. So here he brings down that for the oraita, even if they didn't make a proclamation, still his edut is pasul. One who is disqualified by rabbinic law is disqualified only after his disqualification is proclaimed in court. If the court publicly punishes him, it's considered as if they're making him disqualified. So the halacha is like brought down in this Gemara, in this part over here, that when it is a deoraita, then you don't have to make an announcement. When it's an Issa Rabbanan, then you would have to make an announcement that he's a pasul ed, pasul witness. Siman, we're now going to have three cases. Siman, davar, arayot, and ganav. Case of davar, case of arayot, and a case of a ganav. Amar of Nachman, what is this davar? Ochle davar achar, pistulin le'edut. Someone who eats a davar achar is pasul le'edut. He's pasul to be a witness. Now, what does this mean to eat a davar achar? Can it mean to be an actual pig? Davar achar usually means pig. It does not mean pig. And it actually means instead, if you look in Rashi, Rashi says, Mikable tzedakah min hanochrim. If he accepts tzedakah from goyim, dehave chilul Hashem mahmat mamon, v'have lekirashad dehamas. He's making a chilul Hashem by taking money from goyim, because he should be taking money from Jewish people. They should help him out. They're going to say, look at this Jewish guy, don't even help him. He has to take money from us. Therefore, it's a bizayon. It's a disgrace. And you see, he doesn't care about his own disgrace. He takes the money. So we have to be worried that he's going to take people's money to lie, because he doesn't care about his own self-esteem. And he's a problematic. He's pasul ed. Now the Gemara is going to qualify. Hani mili befarhesia. It is only if he goes and he accepts their money publicly. But if he accepted their money, the guy's money, privately, he's not considered a pasul ed. For hesia nami lo amranan elo de efshar le it zon e bitkinah. This is only true that if he took it publicly, if he was able to do it privately, he took it publicly. If there was no way to get this money except to get it publicly, right, and that's his parnosa, that's his money, that's where he lives from, then he'll be allowed to take it from the guy, even in public, and he will still be a kosher aid. The only time you become the pasul aid for accepting tzedakah from goyim is if, first of all, he doesn't need it, or he needs it, but he could take it privately, but yet he takes it publicly. All those would be grounds to make him a pasul aid. Omar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman said, "He hashud al ha'arayot kasher le'edut." Someone who is suspect of arayot, of having illicit sexual relations, he becomes he's still considered a kosher aid, kosher witness. Now, exactly what does it mean, suspect of illicit relations? According to some Rishonim, this means he actually did do it. He actually was with someone he wasn't allowed to. And still he's a kosher aid. Others explain no, that we don't know for sure that he did. All we know is that there is gav, there's talk that he was with a lot of ladies, or he was doing other things with people he shouldn't have been with. And by the way, this is only if he was suspect to with nashim, with ladies. If he's suspect with the mishkav zachar, there are those who say that he becomes automatically disqualified as an aid, because then it's already too much. A desire for women is one set of desire. A desire for men is already, like we mentioned before, is a bigger balhana. The guy just wants more and more different pleasures, so it's already becomes more disqualified. But the pashut here is that there's a call, there's a voice that went out, there's a gav that went out, that this is the way they seem to be learning most of the Parshim, that he seemed that a voice came out that he was with a woman he shouldn't have been, yet his edut is kosher. Amar Rav Sheshet. Rav Sheshet asks, Ane Mare, explain to me, Rabbi. Arba'in b'chitfe b'chasher. For such a case where a voice goes out that he was with someone who wasn't allowed, the halacha is the rabbis can give him malkut, can beat him up 39 times. And you're telling me he gets malkut and he's kosher? Amar Rava, they're going to qualify now and say, Umod Rav Nachman le'inyan edut isha shehi pasul. Rav Nachman says, but the truth is, when it comes to testimony about women, we don't believe him. The woman is married or not, we don't believe him. Amar Avina, Papa. When we say we don't believe him about the edut of a woman, lo amran el la'afuke. We just don't believe him to say that someone is not married anymore. To say, oh yeah, her husband gave her a get. We don't believe him for that because he wants to be with her, so he's gonna lie and say she's divorced. But if he was going to say that no, she's married, that we do believe him, because then he makes her usher to him. Where I said pshita, it's obvious, of course. To say that she's married, we believe. Say she's not married, we don't believe. No, it's not that simple. You might have thought, what? No, he wants her to be married. Why? Because it's more pleasurable for him to be with a woman who's married, because it's more sinful. And when it's stolen waters, when she's not allowed to you got to sneak around and be with her, that now causes the Yitzhara to make it seem more sweet. Now, Chaim Shmulevitz, he says, 1 second. We're saying he's lying. We're saying that he's lying to say that she's married. Meaning she's not married. Her husband gave a divorce. But he's going to say that she is married. But he knows she's not married. So how is it Mayim Genuvim? How is it stolen waters? And Chaim Shmulevitz says this is part of what the Yitzhara does. The Yitzhara says, he knows this is no good. He knows it's worthless. But he makes it seem to you as Mayim Genuvim. He'll make you think that it's stolen waters, even though it's not. But he wants you to believe that something is this way, so you come to enjoy it more because now you think it's usher and you do it, and a person becomes all confused. It tricks you into thinking such ways in order for you to have more pleasure when you're sinning. So maybe we should be worried that he'll lie and say she's married in order to have more pleasure through the sin. No, we're saying no, the guy would rather have her more available to him than to having to sneak around to get to her because people think that she's married. So he will only be concerned that he's lying that she's not married, but we will not be concerned he's lying to say that she is married. Now, Shulchan Aruch L'Halacha says that a person who's chashud, who is being suspected of illicit relationships with women, he is not believed neither for marriage or for divorce. We don't believe him either way. We don't believe him. אין אדם נפסל על הכל וחשד בעלמא, ככל מי שחשד על ירד, וכל יוצא אליו, כלל של כל עת, אבל לעדות אישה, בין לקידושין, בין לגירושין, הוא פסול. The guy who the voice came out that he was suspect for of sinning with illicit relationships, בין קידושין, בין לגירושין, הוא פסול. Now, in our sugya here, Rashi says, he's also not believed to say that her husband died. That's what our Rashi here in the Sugya says. However, the Shulchan Aruch says that he would be believed to say that her husband died. Even though that makes her mutar to him, still, we usually say that everyone, all psulim, are what's it called, believed to say that someone died. Here it says, mashma shalaheid shemed bala hu kasher. He's kosher. Of Rashi, perish who possible. But here Rashi says that she is possible. Because we say ed egonemon to say that the Baal is even a woman can say, a slave can say, anyone can say that someone's husband died in order not to make her an aguna, right? Chained widow. So it seems to be Shulchan Aruch that he would be allowed to say that she died. Someone in the shul on Shabbat wanted to say, he gave a whole shot why the Shulchan Aruch would say for death yes and for divorce no. If he's lying, he's going to show up the husband and it's going to cause him problems and that problems, and more problems than by the divorcee. All right, that's what he says regarding someone who's suspect. Okay, now the Amar of Nachman, Ganav, a thief, Ganav Nisan, the Ganav Tishrei, a Nisan thief or a Tishrei thief, Lo Shemeh Ganav, not considered a Ganav. If you steal in Nisan or Tishrei, it's okay. You're not considered a Ganav. Now, it's not what the Gemara means. Okay, don't read the Gemara this way and say it's Tishrei, Nisan, I can steal, no problem. I'm not considered a Ganav. What this means here, the Gemara is going to explain. Hani mili ba'arisa. It's about a sharecropper. Okay, so what does he do? What's a sharecropper? Ephraim owns a field, and I come to him and I say, I want to use your field to plant stuff. He says, okay, you plant, you do, and then you give me a percentage. Ephraim takes a percentage of the fruit that's grown. So I work on it, his field, and I work on it, and I give him a percentage. What happens now during Nisan is when we cut it, during Tishrei is when we gather it, and during these times, I am taking some of it, more than my percentage. I'm eating some of his stuff. Now, I'm not a worker. Workers are allowed to eat while they're working with it. I'm a sharecropper, so I'm not allowed to. I only can take my percentage. And yet, I'm eating his stuff. Davar muat. I'm taking something small. With davar shenigbar malachto, according to the girsa we have here, the version we have here, it says, once the product has been finished, according to the Rambam, this case talking when the product is not fully formed yet. So I took a little bit at the time that I'm working with it. Usually workers would be permissible. So the guy thinks, listen, workers can do it. I can do it too. So he does it as well. Also, they say that the Baal, the owner, he says, okay, it's a little bit, the guy's working in it, whatever, I'll be mochlet. Even though he's stealing it, I will be mochlet. Therefore, he's not considered a ganav, but he's still considered a kosher aid. Now, there was a story, Ikar de Rav Zvid, happened to Rav Zvid, that he had some workers. Chad ganav kabah, the Sariv Soleh, he stole a kav of barley. So the Aruch wanted to say it's a kafa, which is a large amount. Since he stole a large amount, Rav Zvid made him possible. Chad ganav kibura, the Hanim Saleh, someone stole a cluster of dates. Apparently, a cluster of dates was a big amount, according to the Aruch. And he made him apostle as well. In these cases, it wasn't considered stealing something small or that the owner was mochel, and rather these cases it was considered big, and the owner was not mochel, and therefore they became a apostle aid. It became pasul edim. All right, moving along. Hainu kabroe de kabur nafsha b'yom tov rishon shel atzeret. This is happening in Babel where they have a 2-day Yom Tov. And on the first day, someone died. And the grave diggers went and they dig the grave and buried a person on the first day of Yom Tov. And that's not allowed on the first day of Yom Tov. Second day of Yom Tov is already more stuff that you're allowed to do. But first day, you're not allowed to do it. And these people did it. The Jewish people did it. Rav Papa came, put them in cherem, in excommunication, and made them pasul le'edut. Rav Huna, berev dar Yeshua. And Rav Huna, the son of Yeshua, came and said they're kosher to be edim. Amalera Papa, what are you doing? They're sha'im. I put them in cherem. The Gemara answered, what did Rav Huna say? Sovereign mitzvah ka'avnei. When they were doing the digging of the grave, they thought they were doing a mitzvah. Therefore, they are not pasul because they thought they were doing the right thing. Papa says, how come they think they're doing the right thing? I put them in cherem, and either they did it again later, according to Ramshat, or I put them in cherem and they never came to get out of cherem. They never came to ask to get out of cherem. So they didn't think it's a mitzvah. They know they did an avera and they're keeping quiet about it. So Rav Huna says no. Savre kapara ke'avdi lan rabanan. You know why they didn't come and say take us out of cherem? You know why they did it again? Because they thought that when you put them into cherem, it's not because they did an avera, but it's rather they did a mitzvah through an avera. Since it's Yom Tov, they weren't supposed to dig, but they dig to do a mitzvah. So therefore, it's a mitzvah done through avera. So we did a mitzvah. We need some sort of a kapara. Therefore, the kapara comes. The kapara comes from the cherem that you put us into. And therefore they're considered kosher edim. Now, I just found this Gemara very fascinating because you'll see, especially by our people, the older generation, the newer generation, Baruch Hashem, is already listening to Da'at Torah. But the case of an example, for many years, when a person died, the Shabbat, during Shabbat day, after the Su'udah, all the women would get together, and one woman would come, professional crier, and she would cry and make everybody cry. On Shabbat, you're not allowed to cry. It's asur legamri to do such a thing on Shabbat. There's no heter at all for this. And yet, they would do it, and you would tell them, you can't do it. And they would say, shh, shh, and they wouldn't, and they would just do their thing. I would think it's the same idea. They think they're doing a mitzvah. Hey, you're telling them don't do it because it's the mitzvah of Avera. But in the end of the day, they think they're doing respect for the dead. Cover the mate. So and I think you find this a lot when it comes to dealing with death. That I guess people feel bad that they're missing the person. They're trying to do things good for them. They think it's mitzvot, but unfortunately, they end up doing averot. Yet they're still going to be kosher edim as they think they're doing mitzvot. That's what it seems to come out. Any comments? Okay, fine. Let's go to our last piece of Gemara for today. Itmar. It was stated. It zomem. We had it just in this week's parasha Shafitim. A zomem witness. Okay, so let's explain the zomem witness. What? Very simple. So Ephraim and I, we come to Beit Din, and we say we saw Solomon on Tuesday, January 14. We saw him going into the store and stealing everything that was there. This is what we say. Imagine if I am a Solomon and our brothers, so everything's kosher. Adam, come in and we say this. Okay. Now, fast forward 6 to 8 months later, Avram Chaimov and another Jew, Ruvain, come to Beit Din and say that it was impossible for me and Ephraim to see anything because we were with them all day in Disneyland. So that day, January 14th, we couldn't have seen nothing because we were with them in Disneyland that day and not anywhere near the Walmart where Solomon was stealing things. So we become now Edom Zomim, and everything that we wanted to do to Solomon happens to us now. We have to pay back everything that was stolen, what we said was stolen. Okay, That's Adam Zom. Now, remember, in this story, I told you that it was 6 to 8 months later when Avram and Reuben came. Now, during the 6 to 8 months, people called me and Ephraim to be Adam from everything, for purchases, for Gittin, for Kiddushin. We were Adam for everything and anything possible. Now, 8 months later, you find out that me and Ephraim are lying, that we're Adam Zayman. So we become now Apostle Adam. We become non-kosher witnesses. Now the question is, during those 6 to 8 months, after I lied, until it became known, that we lied, those 6 to 8 months, my edut, Ephraim and I edut, with testimony that we gave, is it believed? Is it kosher? Or does it all become possible? This
should be kosher.
This is going to be the machloket Abaye and Rava. So Abaye Amar, Abaye says, who nifsal. All those 6 to 8 months in between, all the edut that we did, all pasul. Everything is pasul. All the purchases, everything pasul. The Rava says, no, it comes from when we find out that they were lying. Not from when they lied, but from when it was made aware that they lied. From that point on, they become pasul. So everything during the 6 to 8 months would be kosher edut. Now, the Abaye is going to explain, and Rava is going to explain their opinions. It goes back to the time that they lied. Everything in between comes pasul. Because he became a rasha when he lied. And it says, don't put yourself together with the rasha. Al tashet rasha ed. Don't become with the rasha a witness. So it comes from the time he lied. Rava Omar, Rava says, Mikan ul habahu nifsal. No, it only becomes pasul from when we find out that they lied. Why? Ed zomem hidushku. My hazit desamach ahani, semoch ahani. Okay, I know I read a lot of words. Let me explain to you now Rava's opinion. Rava says as follows. Rava says, what would happen if Ephraim and me, we came to court and we said X, Y, and Z happened, whatever it was. The next day, Solomon and Avram come inside and they say, no, it didn't happen X, Y, Z. It happened Z, Y, X differently. A different story. What does Beit Din do at this point? The Beit Din cancels both testimonies. We both become nothing believed. We're up to square one again. We have nothing done. We don't know anything. That's what happened. So Rava says, hold on a second. Two people are coming and saying this is what happened. Then another two people come and say, oh, they weren't there. They were with us all day. Why are you believing them? They're 2 against 2. Why are you believing them? Believe the first set of 2. Why are you believing the second set of 2? You know why I believe the second set of 2? Not because of any logic, but rather because the Torah says that's what we do. The Torah says you believe it's the 2 that come later and says they couldn't be there because they were with us. So you believe them because the Torah says, but really it shouldn't because it's 2 against 2 and it's canceled out. So the whole thing is a hidush, the whole new concept. Therefore, we only will say they're pasul from the time the new concept comes into effect. It's when they become Adam Zayman, when you come and you say that they were with you all day somewhere else. That's when it becomes pasul. Everything beforehand, those 6 to 8 months in between, is kosher because the chidush starts and then it continues. It doesn't go backwards. That's the way Rava explains in the first opinion of Rava. Now they're going to give a second explanation of Rava. Ika de Amrei, there are those explain, Rava namika abayas virale. Really, Rava also holds like Abaye. That what? The whole 6 to 8 months should become pasul. All the edut. My tam ka'amar mikanul haba. So why does he say from now and on? Mishum pesidel lekufot. Because he's worried about the purchases. Ephraim bought from Solomon a field, and I and Avram were Adam, right? During the 6 to 8 months. Then it comes out that Avram and me are Adam Zayimim. Now your star is puzzle. You bought it from Solomon. Solomon says your star is puzzle, so the field belongs to me because you don't own the field because your star is puzzle, your document's puzzle. So Rava says it's going to be a whole chaos. Baradak, it's going to be crazy. Everyone's going to be able to steal their fields back because they're going to say the Edut is pasul. The whole thing was pasul. The Mekach Memchar was not reliable. So that's why Rava said Nikan ve'el. But really, he holds like Abaye. My benayu. What's the difference between Rava's two opinions? Gemara says Ika benayu. This is two things that are different between them. One of the differences is a case as follows. Ta'asidu beit trei b'chat. So Rava explained in the first opinion, the whole thing is a chiddush because you have two against two. But what happened if Ephraim and me, we're the Edom Zayman, but Solomon and Avram don't come and say that we're Edom Zayman. Rather, Solomon and Avram come and say, I'm an Edom Zayman. I'm a false witness because I was with them all day. And then another two witnesses come, Reuben and Shimon come, and they say Ephraim's a false witness because they were with me that day somewhere else. So now it's not 2 versus 2. It's 2 versus 1 and 2 versus 1. As such, we would be believed. It's not a chidush anymore to say, oh, believe the second set over the first set. Because it's not one set versus another set. It's 2 versus 1 and 2 versus another one. And as such, they would be believed. So according to Rava's first opinion, if it's all about chidush, that's why it starts from now and on. In this case, it would be lemafreya. It would start retroactive because there is no chidush here. But according to the second case, second understanding of Rava, where it's only because of purchases that we allow for mikanu laba. So even if it's 2 versus 1 and 2 versus 1, we're still going to say from the time that they became Edom Zayim because we don't want the purchasers to lose out. Another nafkamina, is if they come and they say that we are possible because we stole. If it's about stealing, so then we do become possible. And it's not, there's no chiddush to say, oh, it starts from now because it's a chiddush and it starts from now. Not anymore a chiddush. It's not 2 versus 2. They have a raya that we stole, right? They have proof that we stole. And as such, it would be lemafreya. We go back to when we first lied. And but if it was according to Rava's second opinion of because we're worried about purchases and we don't want people to lose that money, so then it would start from mikan uhaba. Now, halacha l'maisa, what is it? The person became an Edom Zayim 8 months later, 12 months later, 2 years later, whatever it was, and all that time he was acting as an aide. Do we go like a Abaye or do we go like Rava? Do we say it goes backwards or not, and everything becomes possible in between? So let's see. Rabbi Yirmiyah Medifti said, "Avad Papi Uvda Kivatei Rava." Rav Papi ruled like Rava that it starts from now and on, like Ephraim said, from now and on. Mar Baravashi Amar Chata Kivatei de Abaya. No, the halacha is like Abaye. The truth is, when there's a machlok between Abaye and Rava, the halacha is usually like Rava, except for 6 cases. And this is one of the 6 cases. If you look in note 11, Ya'al Kigam, the 6 letters, and in these 6-letter acronym is when the halacha goes like Abaye. You can go through the whole note, but the ayin is the Ed Zomem, is the Zomem witness here. So let's take a look at halacha l'maisa. It's brought down over here. Eid zomem, af bishozem be'edot mamon v'shilim, pasum le'ater l'chol edut. Me'et shehi bebeitin, af bishlo hozam, alot edut, elach hakam yamim. So an eid zomem is possible. This we already know. Mi she'id b'sheker, v'nuda be'edim she'ir b'sheker, zeu nikra eid zomem, ve'emin Torah edim acharonim al edim harishonim, v'gezel katuv hu. The Gemara, the Shulchan, what is this? This is the that this is the way the Shulchan Aruch brings it down, that it's a chiddush, like Rava they're saying. Because they're the kasavu. Afilo hayu edim rishonim me'ah, uvo shnayim ve'azim ve'amru lehem anu me'edim, she'atem ha'me'ah kulchem imanu ha'etem b'yom ploni, v'mokum ploni, hara'el ne'anshin al pihem Shashnayim kimea omea kishnayim. Doesn't make a difference if it's 2 versus 100 and 100 versus 2. Either way, we believe them. It says here, Sha'af shalacha ke'abaya shil mafrehu nifsal. Kolmakom Hashem Rava Ezayim Chidushu Vadai Muskam Hu. So even though we do hold like Abaya that everything goes backwards, still we hold that it is a Kiddush. Let me just see what it says over here. Here he brings down as well from the Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch. Inspiring witness is disqualified by Torah law for providing any type of testimony, even if it was only done in a monetary case. He's disqualified retroactively from the time he testified in accordance with the opinion of Abaya. So the halacha is actually like Abaya. That what? That all those 6 to 8 months, all his gittin, all his kiddushin, all his luchot, all his purchases, everything, pasul. I don't know exactly what they have to do, but everything is pasul. Everything has to be redone. I mean, there's no choice. All his testimony is pasul. Okay. We'll stop it here. Any questions?
So the halacha is all the cases are pasul, right?
Everything from the time he lied until the time we found out, all of those stuff that he became an aid witness for, all pasul.
Wow.
Yeah, you gotta get trustworthy people. Or don't let him be someone who testifies in court. That's why he cannot become an aid doimer. All right.
And they get
good.
punished the same way, even if the punishment was death penalty, right?
So that's great. That's already a Masechta Makot. You death penalty, yes, but there are certain cases like if the guy wanted to disqualify someone from becoming a kohen, but he's not a kohen himself, so then you give him malkut. That's the beginning of Masechta Makot. Masechta Makot starts off about that. In which cases you won't do exactly the same to them, but rather give them malkut. Most times you will do the exact same thing. You want to kill somebody, you kill him. You want to take money from him, you take money from him, like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Shavua Tov. Tonight at 8:30, B'ezrat Hashem, Hilchot Kriyat HaTorah. Interesting stuff. All right.